Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Roofing Contractor Legal Insights video. I'm Roofing Contractor Editor Art Eisner, and I'm glad to be joined today by Trent Cotney of Adams and Reese. Hey, Trent, how you doing?
Good to see you again, Art.
All right, Trent. Well, no shortage of issues to be talking about, but one of the issues I know you've been getting some calls about lately relates to intellectual property and how contractors can better protect themselves. What are you working on?
Yeah, so I get all kinds of calls. Obviously, contractors will call me with a variety of different issues, and one of the things that has been popping up lately is, how do you protect your company name? How do you protect your logo? How do you protect, maybe clever sayings that you've come up with, things like that. And it's important that you take steps to protect them legally, because if you don't, other competitors can potentially use them, or they could take them for their own. So there are really a variety of different intellectual property tools available under federal law for contractors to take advantage of. Copyright deals with authorship. If you've got books or things of that nature that you publish, that's a great example. Patents, if you've got a unique process that you are engaged in, or a unique product, then you might want to get a patent, utility patent or otherwise. And then the one that we see the most often within the roofing space is a trademark, and a trademark deals primarily with roofing names or roofing logos. And you can, if anyone has any interest in looking at it, they can go to the USPTO website. That's the United States Patent and Trademark Office, and you can search. It's really, anybody can search, and you can see what's been patented or what's been trademarked, and it gives you an idea of whether or not you have something that you could potentially get trademarked. And I gotta tell you, Art, the process is a little lengthy, takes some time. You've got to submit the information. It's very detailed how you submit it. You go through the process, and then ultimately the USPTO office will assign a lawyer to look at your submission and determine whether or not it's something that deserves a trademark or a patent. Okay, if it doesn't, then they will give you an exception notice. They will go through the reasons why, and you have the opportunity to kind of go back and appeal it and go back and forth. But it's a detailed process. I would say during COVID, it would take probably a year or more to get some of this stuff. Now it's shortened, right? Sometimes you can streamline it. I would say 4 to 6 months is probably a good indication of what I'm seeing now. Could be quicker, could be later, but that's about a good idea on the trademark side. Why is this important? Well, I had a contractor recently call me, and they had forgotten to renew their corporate information, right? We all have, no matter what state you're in, there's usually a Department of Corporations where every single year you pay a fee to renew your business license, right? And he forgot to do that, and somebody came in and grabbed his name, okay, and then started using his company name, to gather work, and it puts any contractor in a very difficult position if you don't have a piece of paper or something to say, hey, I own this name, right? It's not just a registration, like I own this name federally. There's also state trademarks available. So depending on what state you're in, you can also kind of look at that. But yeah, Art, it's something that I think a lot of contractors overlook, especially if you've got a unique name or a unique logo or tagline. Definitely look into getting a trademark. It's a fairly routine process, and it's something that you should have.
Wow, a lot to unpack there. First, how nuanced can this be? You mentioned there's a lot of ways. There's only so many ways to draw a roof or use the word roofing creatively, and roofers certainly come up with a lot of them. But how nuanced does this have to be, and how difficult does that make it?
Yeah, so I often say this: anybody can apply for a trademark, right? It's getting the trademark through, which becomes a little bit more difficult. So if a lot of what we have to do is deal in those nuances, figure out how do we dice this in a way that will allow us to potentially get a trademark, even if it might not necessarily be in the category we originally wanted. Is there another way to describe it so that we can get something? And it's useful. It's useful before you start your company to take a look and see whether or not you've got something that somebody else owns a potential trademark on. They look at all kinds of things like usage, geographic reach, things like that. It's a very detailed analysis once the lawyer starts looking at it and does the searches. So, I always say it ain't over till it's over. So, there's always ways to kind of go back and maybe recharacterize things to see if you can't get it in there.
And you mentioned some federal protections related to patents, and then you did follow up saying there are some state as well. I was going to ask, how difficult does that make it, particularly for roofers that work in multiple states? And maybe an infringement in one area, but not in another.
Yeah, so normally I recommend going the federal route just because that is something that a lot of people will have notice and access to, right? Most states recognize what's known as a common law trademark, meaning that, like, for example, if you've been in business for 100 years and everybody knows your name and everybody knows your logo, it's kind of hard to say that somebody that just started is entitled to use your name, right? So there are some arguments there, but I would start with the federal process. The other thing is that if you're, let's say, you're a manufacturer or a distributor and you're doing work overseas, there's international trademarks, there's international, there's things like that that you've got to look into. But start slow, because as you start looking to add to your intellectual property, database, things can get expensive. Patents are expensive. They are not cheap to do. Trademarks are relatively cost effective, because it's a rifle shot, it's narrowly tailored, and it's usually a set fee for filing. So not as expensive to go that route, but definitely I would start with the federal route and then kind of figure out what the next steps are and if you need anything else after that.
Right. And certainly worth doing as a differentiator. I'm curious, so what were you able to advise this contractor in that situation? What can they do?
Yeah, so in a situation where someone has taken your name, you can potentially argue, the common law aspect that your company's been around for 20 years, that everybody knows you, that you advertise, that you market, and that the use of your trade name is an infringement on your intellectual property rights, even if you don't have a trademark in place. It makes it a lot stronger if you do have one. But you can potentially argue that, and that's ultimately the route that I would suggest to anyone that's kind of in that. Nobody likes lawyers, including myself, and I think part of the problem that is in this area, Art, is that this is not a ball or strike call, right? It's a very gray area. What gets rid of that gray area is if you've got that trademark or you got that patent. That eliminates the gray. So,
All right. I'd like to switch gears a little bit to one of your other passions when it comes to the roofing industry, and that's safety. You spend a lot of time preaching it, and I'm sure I just know about what on the surface. You deal with contractors all around the country on this issue. As we come up towards May, it's the 10th year that OSHA is now celebrating its National Safety Stand Down campaign. You've obviously been in the industry for longer than that. I'm interested in your perspective on what that event has meant, for the industry. What are your impressions of it, and why should roofers get involved?
So I think it's been great for the industry because what it does is it really puts a focus on that. It puts a magnifying glass on the issue. And I think a lot of companies, a lot of associations have embraced the fact that safety stand down exists. You see a lot of social media on it, you see a lot of education, you see a lot of training. And Art, look, I'm a big believer. Obviously, I do OSHA defense for a living, but I'm a huge believer in safety training. Every penny that any company spends on safety is a penny well spent. So I think events like this that bring attention to it is important, because if it stays top of mind, that's going to help prevent falls and prevent, potential injuries on a job site.
When you look back over a 10-year period, do you see a difference within the contractors that you deal with?
Yeah, I think it does bring awareness, and I think it brings awareness to the employers and awareness to the employees of those employers because of continued training. So I think it has done good, and I think we need to be talking about it. I think, honestly, I think we need more than once a year. I think we should make it a biannual event because it is a leading cause of death, and I really want to make sure that everyone takes that opportunity to really focus on their safety procedures, their toolbox talks, their safety audits, and see what else can you do to improve. You're never you never have a perfect safety program, right? There's always something else that you can add to it. That's a great time to kind of reflect on that and figure out, what else can we be doing to make sure that everybody goes home safe every night.
All right. Well, Trent, thanks as always for your insight and all you do for the roofing and construction industries. Where can people find out more?
Sure, they can hit me up anytime via email, trent.cotney@arlaw.com.
All right. And before you go check out that website, be sure to stick around on roofingcontractor.com and sign up for our free e-magazine and e-newsletters so you can stay on top of the latest news and information impacting the industry. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.